you think Z and John have a pretty good chance to play on Saturday?
Oh, we're hopeful. They'll be out there today, and we'll see how they react throughout the course of the week. But certainly, yeah, that would be a great bonus for us if they're able to go on Saturday.
Mark Daniels.
Hey, Matt, got me?
Gotcha, Mark.
Matt, how did the insertion of Debo in that backfield change the whole dynamic of the Niners offense and just the challenge of defending what that presents?
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer to their complex offense. I know they do such a great job of formationing, motioning, giving very complementary plays. You got to be very disciplined with your eyes and your rules and responsibilities. But Debo, he's a dynamic player. He's one of the more elite players in this league. And they just try to find different ways to get in the ball, whether it's handing it off, whether it's reverses in the passing game. He's a physical guy. And I think it does present some problems when you just aren't quite sure where he's going to line up. Is he going to be in the halfback position, and the halfback's going to be out wide, or vice versa? But he's a guy that we certainly have to account for on every play.
Cassidy Hill.
Hey, Matt, you've been through 2 playoff runs as a head coach now. Is there anything from these first 2 runs that maybe in particular you learned or would do differently now going into your 3rd run?
Well, I think it's just about the consistency of how you approach each and every game. And yeah, it's the playoffs, so we all know what's at stake. However, I think our process and our approach, it stays the same. And you want to make these guys have countless number of reps of getting prepared for a game. We know that each day is so important that you have to put everything into it so that we're at our best on game day.
Wes Hodkowitz.
Hey, Matt, Devondre had posted on his social last week that he nearly cried when you mentioned that to the team had announced that he'd been first team All-Pro. Just knowing him as long as you have, I'm just wondering what that moment was like for you to see him get that recognition.
Oh man, that was awesome. Those are the types of moments that you live for, I would say, as a coach. To see somebody that works so hard at his craft, that has added so much to this team, not only on the field, that's obvious for everybody to see, but what he brings to our locker room, what he brings to our mentality, not only on defense, but the entire football team. And obviously he's been a big pickup for us. I think he's a big reason as to why we've had the year we've had defensively.
Steve McGargy.
Just wondering, the game you had with the 49ers back in San Francisco, the way y'all were able to win it, how much of a catalyst was it for y'all for the rest of the season, do you think? And how much can you take out of that game going into this one? I know both teams have changed quite a bit since.
Yeah, I think anytime you find ways to win games, especially against really good teams, it does give you some confidence. But we also know that you're only as good as your last game, and it's going to be a great challenge for us. I mean, this is a physical football team that brings it in all 3 phases: offensively, defensively, and on special teams. And we are going to have to get our minds right to have a physical football game, and we're going to need everybody's best. And everybody's going to have to just focus in on doing their job, doing their 111th, and relying on their teammates to do their jobs.
Phil Huber.
Hey, Matt, kind of what Steve was asking about week 3. When you go back and watch, do you put a lot of stock in that game, or is it just so long ago that it's, I don't want to say irrelevant, but because so many things have changed, maybe it's not super important anymore?
Well, I think you always account for your matchup versus another team. And yeah, it was week 3 or whatever it was. And that was a long time ago, but there's still the foundational elements are there really in all 3 phases. And yeah, we all kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? We continue to develop throughout the course of the season and evolve. But yeah, you look at everything. You look at the games that both teams have recently played. You look at that game. You might even go back to years past because like I said, just the common philosophy is still there.
Rob Domofsky.
Hey, Matt, I had just a quick one on the plan for David this week, and then wanted to ask you something else. Will David practice today, and what's the plan?
He will not be out there today.
Any concern there?
No, I'm just, it's more load management, and like always, you guys get tired of me saying it, but we'll see how he's feeling tomorrow and the next day, and see where he's at on game day.
And then wanted to ask you, like, at this time of the year, does the tension level go up in the building and around the team? And if so, how do you just make sure that doesn't affect the guys?
Well, I think it's natural. I really do. I think you really got to try to keep everything in perspective, and really just focus on what you have right in front of you, whether it's the meeting, whether it's the walkthrough, whether it's the practice, just making sure that you're dialed in, you're locked in, you're doing everything you can to stay in the moment. I think that's as important as anything, is staying in the moment, knowing and trusting what has gotten us to this point. And that's, at the end of the day, it's football. And yeah, obviously there's a lot at stake, but that is life in this league. And so you got to try to compartmentalize that as best you can and try to keep it as normal as possible.
MK Burgess.
Hey, Matt, I noticed that Whitney Mercilus was out at practice last week. Will he be out there this week? And what is having a guy potentially back like him do for that defense?
Yeah, we anticipate him being out there. He is just a pro's pro. Just the approach he's taken since the moment we've met him, the moment he's gotten here, it's not a secret as to why he's lasted and played at such a high level in this league. Everything he does is with the right mindset of, how do I get better? And he's been a great addition, not only to the outside linebacker room, but again to our football team. You can't have enough guys like that. They just bring the experience they have. They help some of these younger players along, some of the veterans along as well. So I've been super impressed just with his approach to how he attacked the rehab. Certainly was not necessarily expecting him back this early, but we'll see where he's at. We'll take it one day at a time. He's had limited practice, and see where he's at the end of the week. But certainly he would be a guy that we'd be ecstatic to be able to get back out there on the grass on Saturday.
Mike Spofford.
Hey, Matt, to follow up on Bill's question, just what do you feel are the most significant differences between what you're seeing of the 49ers now when you study them compared to when you played them back in week 3?
Well, I think when you look at their tape, the identity is still there. That has not changed. We knew it going into that game, how physical they were going to be. I just think that there's tweaks that you make throughout the course of the season. Certainly, they're using Debo a little bit differently on offense. They've added some wrinkles defensively. Their corners are a little bit different out there. So I just think that naturally things evolve over time. But if you look at them as of late, this is a confident group. You can see it on tape. You can see it how they played. We're going to have to play every play like it's our last play for the duration of the game. I mean, shoot, you go back to that Rams game, down 17-0 against LA. Shoot, that was one of the better teams in this league, and they didn't flinch. They just kept battling and ended up winning the game in overtime. So we know regardless that you've got to play a complete football game in all three phases for the entire duration of the game.
Mike Clemens.
Matt, how were the 49ers able to take away CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper in that game?
Well, they do a great job of complementing the back end with the pass rush. I think first and foremost, you got to be able to block these guys. They are extremely disruptive. They do a great job of, I wouldn't say they're overly complicated, at least in early downs. Certainly in some of those known passing situations, they present a lot of different challenges, some different looks that just complement one another. I think it's a really sound scheme. I think they do a great job of coaching their guys. And then when you add that with the players that they have from a talent perspective, it makes it a challenge to to get the ball to some of your playmakers.
Ryan Wood.
Before I get to my question, just a really quick follow-up on Dave. Is there any reason to think that he might not play on Saturday given how he came out of Detroit, or is that still the expectation that he'll be able to play?
Like I said all along, we'll always take it one day at a time with him. Obviously, Nagler's not too enthused with my answer, obviously. I'm just teasing Aaron. But no, he just, he's coming off a major injury. So I think you always want to be mindful of the big picture with a guy of his caliber. And, we'll see where he's at tomorrow and follow him throughout the course of the week.
And then I wanted to ask, I think it's fair to say that your last two playoff defeats, you didn't start in a way that gave yourselves much of a chance. I mean, you had the heck of a comeback, obviously, to give yourself a chance last year, but not the way you want to start those games. What if you learned from those games that as a coach in your first 2 years that you can maybe apply to this postseason run?
Well, I think you said it. I mean, you obviously you like to start fast. It's hard when you're talking about this time of year because you're playing great football teams. If you get behind the 8 ball early, it makes it very, very challenging to come back and win a football game. You saw it last week with Dallas, got behind and weren't able to come back. So I think that is an important part of it. I think it's just, really trying to dial it in each and every play. You got to have a short memory, both good and bad, and truly just really do it one play at a time. And I know it's so cliche, but I really think that's the mindset you have to have.
Chris Roth.
I'm at 49ers front, those 5 sacks, 14 quarterback hits against Dallas. How concerning is that given, you might be integrating guys back onto your offensive line this week, and if not, you might have to go with the guys you've been playing with. How big of a concern is that pass rush?
Oh, it's a major concern. You're talking about one of the elite pass rushes in the National Football League. And these guys, they fly off the football, and they do a great job. And it's a very fast defense all around. You look at the back end, you look at the linebackers, they do a great job of playing their keys and just teeing off. And so, like I said, it's going to be a great challenge. We're going to have to do a great job up front, and we're going to have to be able to, play complementary offense. You got to be able to mix it up. If you get one-dimensional versus this team, it's going to be a long day for you.
All right, we'll do 2 more. Andy Herman.
Hey, Matt, just wanted to ask you, I'm sure you saw the end of the Cowboys game and the timing issue there. Why I wanted to ask you about that is at the end of the 49ers game in week 3, you guys had a semi-similar situation where you had to quickly spike the ball. I couldn't tell from the TV tape, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like in that situation, you guys had maybe placed the ball and then the ref also had to come and touch it. What happened in that situation, and what's the proper procedure to get the ball spiked in time?
Yeah, I think that those are situations that you practice quite often, and you go through it and you try to test yourself, and you really got to execute well in that moment. And typically, you have certain parameters for what play gets called based on the looks and whatnot. And I do think that, for us, just learning from what we saw in that game, there's value in every clip. There's value in seeing what maybe Dallas could have done a little bit better, what we could have done better at the end of that San Francisco game. I think one thing that is glaringly obvious is, it is best if you can hand the ball to the official to allow him to spot the ball, and then also just being mindful of up front of allowing that official a clear path, both to set the ball down and then to get out of there. So I think that's something that will definitely make our guards aware, because those are the guys that can allow him to get out a little bit quicker, and then you got an opportunity to spike the football.
And last one, Greg Matzik.
Hey, Matt, oftentimes guys coming back from injury, they can sort of test the area that they injured, an ankle, a wrist, a back, who knows. But what do you do with Jair? The shoulder injury, the collarbone area, how do you test that? What's the hurdle he needs to clear, or do you just have to trust the timeline?
That's a great question, Greg. We actually will have him put on his shoulder pads, and there's a lot of concrete walls around here. We're just going to have him run right into the concrete wall and see how it feels. No, it's just, yeah, I think it's a lot of that. It's a lot of trust in the timeline, but also, yeah, he's got to see how it feels with pads on. And there's little things that we'll do in terms of you got sleds and whatnot that you can kind of hit just to make sure that he feels comfortable, that we feel comfortable with where he's at.